You are sitting there breathing, browsing the internet or staring at a wall, and suddenly something hits you like a physical weight. The pure fact that you exist. It's not a midlife crisis, nor a passing bad mood. It's a failure in the narrative you were told about what it really means to be human. Most people talk about life as a gift or a journey, but they are avoiding the disturbing truth. You didn't arrive here. You were triggered into existence. You didn't choose to be a person, just as a stone doesn't choose to fall. This deep strangeness you feel, this sensation of being an alien in your own skin, is not a sign that something is wrong with your mind. It's a sign that you are finally perceiving how it works. We like to think that we are the owners of our house, but Arthur Schopenhauer realized a long time ago that we are barely even tenants. We are merely the manifestation of a blind and hungry force that has no plan for us. Think about your first memory. It's probably a blurry and fragmented image, the kitchen floor, a toy, a voice. Before that, nothing. Absolutely nothing. You don't remember not existing, but you also don't remember having begun. You simply appeared. It's the ultimate ontological shock, but we ignore it because everyone else seems to act as if it's perfectly normal. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this arrival not as a beginning, but as a trap. For him, birth is the moment you are forced to pay a debt you never even agreed to. You did not emerge from nothing as a fresh, new soul. You are the continuation of a cycle that has been repeating for ages, long before you were even a concept. You are an extension of an ancestral impulse that simply refuses to stop. That's why your origin feels so nebulous and strange. There was no conscious decision-maker behind your arrival. You are just the latest wave in a restless ocean that doesn't know how to stay still. And because you have no conscious memory of a beginning, you wander through a life that already feels halfway over the moment you become aware of it. Observe the enormous effort required just to remain standing. Eating, working, the incessant maintenance of your physical body, it is an exhausting and continuous operation. But let's be honest, no one ever sat down with you and asked if you wanted to take part in this. This will to live is not a noble decision you make every morning. It is an imposition placed upon you. You find yourself frantically trying to keep your head above water, protecting an existence you never asked for. We like to talk about freedom of choice and the power of the individual, but these are just convenient narratives to make us feel less like passengers. In reality, you were thrown into this world with a set of pre-installed impulses that dictate your every move. Life does not negotiate, it simply happens and demands that you sustain it at any cost. You spend your days serving a master that never introduced itself, but you have grown so accustomed to the weight of these demands that you have begun to call them personality or ambition. It is a strange kind of submission, where you have learned to value the very pressure that keeps you trapped. The truth is that you did not merely arrive at a starting line, you entered a current that was already flowing at full force. Whenever you try to find the beginning of your life, you find yourself groping in shadows. We have this deep, almost desperate need for a clear sequence, a logical starting point that explains why we are the way we are. But reality does not work in chapters. It is always invariably happening. When you awoke to consciousness, you did not land on a piece of untouched ground. You were thrown into a high-speed collision that had already been in motion for millions of years. Arthur Schopenhauer understood that the world is a continuous manifestation of the will, which means there is no original point where things make sense. There is only the constant and incessant present. You never truly took part in the origin of your own story. You simply arrived in the middle of the sentence and had to start pretending you knew the script. This shatters the comforting idea that your life is a carefully planned narrative with a purpose. It is more like a chaotic improvisation within a flow that was never designed for your understanding. You are stuck in the middle of a process that does not care about your need for an introduction. You think you are building something from scratch, but in reality, you are just trying to find your balance on a treadmill that has been running since before time was even a word. You are a witness to a manifestation that never stops and never explains itself. And the strangest part is that you cannot even step away to breathe or observe it from the outside for a single second. If this kind of deep analysis of the patterns of the psyche interests you, you might want to stick around and subscribe to the channel. We don't do superficial content here. There is no off button. You may think that sleep is an escape, a brief pause from the burden of being you, but that is just another story you tell yourself to cope with the weight. Even in the deepest sleep, the will continues working, keeping your heart beating, controlling your breathing, and weaving dreams with the same restless energy that drives your waking hours. You are effectively a prisoner of your own consciousness. There is no pause button, no intermission, and certainly no exit. You are permanently strapped into the pilot's seat of a vessel that never lands. The sheer exhaustion people feel is not always related to work or relationships. It is the existential fatigue of being on indefinitely. You are constantly bombarded by the internal noise of existence. Even when you try to remain in complete stillness, the machinery of the will keeps humming in the background. Desires, anxieties, and the silent, pulsing need to keep going. You cannot step outside yourself to see what is really happening. You are the experience, and the experience is a closed loop. There is no outside to go to. This realization is what creates that heavy, claustrophobic feeling on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The sudden and acute awareness that you are trapped inside this biological process until the end, and that there is not a single moment of true and pure silence anywhere in the universe for you. Think for a second about the concept of your own end. You know intellectually that you are mortal. You see the world moving on without others, and assume the same will happen with you. But here's the problem. You cannot truly comprehend your own absence. For Arthur Schopenhauer, this is the ultimate psychological barrier. You are a perspective, a window through which the will observes itself. You can imagine a world without people, but you are still there, the silent observer, imagining it. The fear people feel when thinking about death is not in fact the fear of being dead, because you will not be there to experience being dead. It is the terror of the will losing control over the individual perspective it worked so hard to sustain. The impulse that moves you does not die. It simply goes on, dissolving the you part of the equation while the hunger remains. You stand before a boundary you will never cross as a conscious participant. You are essentially a flame, that will never be able to know what it is to go out. This creates a permanent tension in your life, a friction between the certainty of an end and the total inability to conceive it. You are forced to live toward a limit that remains fundamentally invisible to you. The world you think you are walking through does not actually exist out there. It is a difficult truth to accept, but it is the reality of your situation. Every sunset, every person you have ever loved, every betrayal, all of it happened inside the gray matter of your mind. You are not experiencing the world, you are experiencing your brain's reaction to it. For Arthur Schopenhauer, the world is your representation. It is a private broadcast that only you watch. This means that the real world is forever out of your reach. Hidden behind a veil of biological filters you will never be able to remove. You are effectively trapped in a form of sensory solitary confinement. When you look at an object, you're not seeing its essence. You are seeing how your specific architecture allows it to appear. That is why communication can feel so empty at times. You are not speaking to another person, you are speaking to your image of them. You are navigating a strictly internal universe, a dream that feels solid only because you have no other point of reference. The strangeness you feel is not because the world is strange. It is because you are trying to touch something you can only imagine. If you try to find the you that is listening to these words right now, where do you look? You can point to your chest or your head, but those are just parts of the body, objects in the physical world. The entity that observes, the one that truly feels the weight of existence, is nowhere to be found. It has no dimensions, weight, or coordinates. For Arthur Schopenhauer, this is the great irony. The subject of all experience is the only thing that can never become an object of experience. You are the eye that sees everything, but can never see itself. This lack of a solid center is exactly why you feel so adrift. When you remove the labels, there is no solid ego in command. There is only a flow, a continuous stream of consciousness with no fixed substance. You are not a thing, you are a phenomenon. You exist as a light produced by the friction between the will and the brain, but you have no anchor. This creates an empty feeling when you stop moving long enough to notice it. The realization that you are a groundless presence, a ghost haunting its own biological machinery. This is the split that never heals. There is a strange and cold duality in your existence. You are the one who lives life, but you are also the one who watches yourself living it. You can retreat into your own mind and criticize your own thoughts, judge your own failures, and witness your own decline. You walk through the world playing a role, and yet there is a silent, distant part of you that knows it is a performance. This is not a higher self or a spiritual guide. It is simply the structural flaw of being a conscious animal. That is why you may not feel alone even when you are alone. You are trapped with a witness that never stops observing, but never reaches out. You are the subject and the object, the predator and the prey, trapped in a recursive cycle where you are constantly trying to catch your own tail. This internal distance is the reason why nothing ever feels truly real or enough, because you are always one step behind the moment, observing the experience instead of simply living it. The common mistake is to treat the now as a destination, or a place where you can finally rest. Arthur Schopenhauer saw life not as a succession of moments, but as a perpetual sliding. Trying to capture the present is like trying to grab a knife by the blade while it falls. You only feel the cut, never the solidity. The second you notice that you are happy, or at peace, or even suffering, that perception is already a corpse. What you call your life is in fact the dust left behind by a movement that never stops. The will has no brakes and no arrival. It is pure striving that consumes itself at the exact moment it manifests. This creates an existential vertigo that you feel in the pit of your stomach on quiet days. The realization that you are a tightrope walker on a wire with no thickness. You do not inhabit time. You are devoured by it, millimeter by millimeter, never able to plant your feet on something that is not melting. The feeling of instability is not a flaw in the path. It is the texture of reality itself. You have probably spent years trying to decipher the why of your life, as if the universe were a puzzle, waiting for your specific logic to solve it. But the world does not need your understanding to function. The will, this brute driving force, is perfectly content to keep moving forward, indifferent to whether you consider it meaningful or monstrous. It operates in a pre-logical basement where your reasons and justifications are completely irrelevant. You are a passenger on a ship that moves for reasons that have nothing to do with your destination. This generates a silent and structural sense of irrelevance. You can pause, protest, or have an existential breakdown, but the machinery of reality will not lose its rhythm. The will does not need to be understood to be effective. It simply is. Your intellect is like a small flashlight trying to illuminate a hurricane. It may help you see the debris flying toward you, but it does nothing to stop the storm. The reality you inhabit does not adjust its physics or its cruelty to fit your moral framework. It moves with a silent and terrifying momentum, leaving you with the disturbing realization that you are not the protagonist of existence, but a temporary witness to a process that was never designed to make sense to you. You spend your life surrounded by bodies that look like yours, speak like yours, and bleed like yours, but you are effectively locked inside a kind of windowless sensory vault. You assume that because someone grimaces, they feel pain the same way you do. But that is a leap of faith you will never be able to prove. Despite all the talk about empathy and shared experience, you are a solitary observer staring at a screen that only you can see. Every connection you have ever felt is an internal event, a chemical and electrical reaction that happens entirely within your own perimeter. You are not touching another soul. You are merely interpreting signals that your brain translates into a person. This creates a structural isolation that no intimacy can overcome. You can share a bed, a conversation, or an entire life with someone, and still be two distinct manifestations of the will, separated by an insurmountable biological barrier. Your we is a convenient fiction used to navigate a world where everyone is essentially a ghost to everyone else. You are an island that believes it is part of a continent simply because it can see other islands on the horizon. But beneath the surface, there is no bridge. There is only the cold and deep water of individual perception, and you are the sole inhabitant of your particular version of the universe. The weight of this realization is what makes crowded places feel so empty. You are witnessing a sea of private worlds, each as vivid and isolated as your own, colliding with one another like billiard balls. There is no collective consciousness, no shared reality you can step into to verify your own sanity. You are an experiment in a one-person laboratory. You are the only one who will ever know what it is like to be you, and that secret will remain intact until the moment your particular window to the world finally shatters. There is a fundamental limit to what you can truly know, and it is not because you are not intelligent enough, it is because of your point of view. Imagine a character in a painting, trying to understand the brushstrokes or the chemical composition of the oil on the canvas. He can observe the colors around him, he can feel the texture of the surface, but he can never step outside the painting to see the frame. You are that character. Your brain, your logic, and your senses are tools built by the will to serve the will. They were not designed to decode the truth of existence, but to help you navigate it long enough to survive. There is no objective external vantage point you can access to see the big picture. Any conclusion you reach about the universe is still just an internal event occurring in a small corner of that same universe. You are part of the machinery trying to explain the factory, and since you cannot stop being a cog for even a second, you will never see the full design. You are trapped in a recursive loop where the observer is made of the same substance as the observed object. The strangeness of being alive is the constant and unsettling awareness that you are immersed in something vast and terribly real, yet are biologically prevented from seeing it as it truly is. You are the mystery investigating itself, and the more you look, the more the you that is looking begins to dissolve. At some point, the weight of all these realizations, the isolation, the blind drive of the will, the fleeting nature of the now, reaches a breaking point where you either collapse or adapt. Adapting does not mean you finally solve the mystery. It means you stop treating your life as a problem that needs a solution. There is a strange and cold comfort in admitting that you are not the pilot. When you stop trying to impose a why onto a universe that only communicates in is, the pressure eases. You are free to stop performing for a non-existent audience and to stop building monuments on a desert of quicksand. You are here for a brief and inexplicable flash of time, witnessing a spectacle that was never made for your eyes, and there is a profound dignity in simply refusing to look away. You are a fragment of the universe awakening to observe itself, and even if it is only for a second, and even if it makes no sense at all, that flicker of consciousness is the only thing that is truly, undeniably yours. In the end, I think the loneliest part isn't being alone, but realizing that our consciousness is this windowless room that we will never truly be able to share with anyone. We try, we love, we shout and we write, trying to pierce that bubble, but we can only ever touch the surface of the other, never what is inside. It's somewhat despairing, but there is a strange freedom in it as well. If none of this has a manual or a universal why, we stop trying to be the protagonist of some grand epic and start being just someone trying to feel the wind on their face before the light goes out. It's raw, it hurts, but it's the only real thing we have. Don't forget to subscribe to The Observer. There is much more to learn here. See you in the next video,